make our way through our elimination rounds and get ourselves a champion here. And if it's Ross, things certainly do change for Season 3.
Yeah, Ross is poised to kind of take over or really put a lot of pressure on Joel Lissette in terms of the player of the championship. But Lloyd Kurth here leading with the pack rat on turn 2. That's exactly what Ross didn't want to have to see. Very difficult card for Mono Blue to contend with. And I have to say, the black-white mid-range deck probably doesn't have as good of a matchup against Mono Blue as the old Mono Black deck did, because they don't have Night Veil Specters. Night Veil Spectre, obviously a very good card against Mono Blue Devotion. But again, Pack Rat, Desecration Demon, and the suite of removal spells they have can be very problematic for the blue deck.
Yeah, we have seen this before, you know, a pack rat against Mono Blue. It's pretty simple. You know, Kurth has an Underworld Connections in his hand. He has things to do, but he's going to play his third land, think for a moment and say, your turn. I am on one plan.
Yeah, and look at it. He got pack rat, and he's got like a removal spell in his hand too for backup later on. So that's where the game kind of gets silly, where pack rat alone can just kind of take over the game.
Now, one thing I do know about Ross is he's always felt, hey, I can work my way through pack rats given the appropriate draw. You know, domestication, cyclonic rifts, rapid hybridizations, you know, timing, being able to get through the air, making creatures unblockable with Thassa, and certainly get the job done. His start's great. You know, 1-drop, 2-drop Thassa is one devotion away from getting the God of the Sea online. So, again, you know, if you're going to have a start where your opponent starts off with a pack rat, this has probably got to be it. Oh,
yeah, this is definitely the start that Ross needed. And the thing, pack rat alone won't really do it sometimes, but pack rat in combination with a timely removal spell can usually be good enough. Here, Lloyd has the option to possibly attack for 6 right here, dropping Ross all the way down to 20, and then having 9 power on the board for next turn, potentially 12. So, next turn, if he draws a 5th land, he could actually cast a removal spell and activate Rat again. So it's going to be really tricky to see, one, does Ross have a good follow-up on his turn, and does Lloyd draw the 5th land? Because that can basically just swing the entire game.
Lloyd's going to go reaching, going to serve in with these 2 pack rats. We'll see if he activates before damage or not. You see there's a Lifebane Zombie in his hand. There's a connection, so he just discarded 1 before. And he says, all right, just take 4. Merriam's going to go down to 16. He's going to deploy Desecration Demon past the turn back. The big question here, is it better to deploy the 6/6, which Merriam can kind of control, or are you better off just making more rats?
Yeah, the problem with the Desecration Demon play is if Ross plays a Master of Waves, I think it's really bad for him, because it turns on Thassa, and he could just sacrifice one of the tokens to tap the demon and attack in for 8, which will put him on a basically 1-turn clock potentially. And then he has to kill Master of the Waves next turn. So if he doesn't draw a 5th land, it's going to be a little interesting here. So, and that's exactly what happens.
Hey, yeah, you talked just about it right there. Now Thassa, the Tidebinder Mage, and the Judge's Familiar is going to come in. That's 5, 6, 7, 8. Kurth goes down 8. That's 2-turn clock. Now Kurth has to have the answer for the Master of Waves. We know he does have 1 in his hand. You can see the Bile Blight there. But that kind of restricts what he can do now.
Exactly, yeah. He just doesn't, he kind of limits his options there a little bit.
So Kurth draws a card. There's not a 5th land in there. So as you mentioned, if he had a 5th land, of course, one that does come into play untapped, he could Bile Blight, Master of Waves, make a pack rat, and get busy. But he's restricted on mana. He's actually drawn some cards, truth be told, that aren't great right now in the matchup. Again, Lifebane Zombie, Underworld Connections in his hand. He's a little bit stuck. And, you know, the big issue here, too, is that the Desecration Demon that's in play for Kurth can be controlled by Merriam to a certain degree.
Yeah, and you see, that's where if he just... And Zvi Masters wrote an article about this in Star City where, like, sometimes it's always just right to, like, activate Pack Rat. Yep. If he just activates Pack Rat, he gets an additional 2 points of damage in. Plus, he's got a 3/3 blocker back, so the Tidebinder Mage wouldn't have been able to attack. Yep. So you save yourself 2 damage there. So, yeah, kind of an unfortunate position here because he didn't draw that 5th land, so now his options are definitely limited. He has to kill the Master. And he could still swing for 7 in the air and put a little bit pressure on Ross, putting him down to 9. So things aren't over for Lloyd by any stretch, but Ross still has that Thassa.
It's time to put the Desecration trigger on the stack. Merriam shrugs his shoulders and says, that's fine. Do what you want to do with that 7/7. Kurth has the difficult decision of trying to figure out how to attack. Will Thassa be turned on? You have to assume yes, I think, if you're Lloyd for next turn.
Yeah.
You know, there's 4 devotion. He gets to scry once. You have to imagine, okay, that thing's going to be attacking me next turn, so I need to plan appropriately for that.
I think it's fine for Lloyd to attack with 2 creatures here, the Desecration Demon and one of the rats, because technically Ross is unlikely to be able to turn on Thassa and make 2 things unblockable, the Tidebinder Mage and the Thassa.
Okay, sure.
So as long as you can block the Tidebinder Mage, you should be okay, because you're at 8.
He's a little gun-shy, though. Again, this is part of the problem.
You know what? Actually, yeah, he won't be able to act. I was thinking maybe he can activate Mutavault as well, but yeah, if he has a no, I think he has to keep a rat back because if Ross has like a 2-drop, he can activate Mutavault and attack with everything.
Yep.
So he has to keep a rat back. Okay, so now he's basically hoping that Ross doesn't have a blue devotion card that costs less than 3.
Let's see if that's what Merriam does have. He's going to take a look at the top card of his deck.
Yeah, because if Ross just plays anything with a blue devotion of 1, Thassa turns on, and he'll be able to activate his Mutavault and attack with all 4 of his creatures. Lloyd only has 1 blocker back, I believe. I don't think he has a Mutavault either.
Yeah, he does not have a Mutavault in his lands.
So he can block the Thassa, and then he'll take 5.
Yeah, but he's pretty far behind still then.
Yeah.
There's an island for Merriam. He's going to fire up his Mutavault.
Oh, wow.
This is actually pretty big if he doesn't have anything to play.
That's huge, yeah.
Makes you wonder what it's. I mean, that leads me to believe this probably just has spells in his hand. Yep, that's a beating. Cyclonic is going to bounce a token. He's going to beat Pack-Rat in combat with Tidebinder Mage. That'll be 3 points of damage that comes across. Kurth's going to go down to 5. And Merriam has creatures in play to be able to control the Desecration Demon. Because even if Kurth were to go removal spell on Judge's Familiar and Tidebinder Mage, he can just activate the Mutavault and sacrifice it.
Yeah, but he's still not in bad shape because Ross only has 2 creatures. He's got the Mutavault, obviously, but he's going to have to sacrifice something to deal with the Desecration Demon. Or he casts Rapid Hybridization.
Or will he?
Wow.
So get that thing out of here. Here's a 3/3 Frog Lizard just for you, Lloyd Kurth. So that'll come into play. And again, this has changed things drastically as well because now we can go unblockable mode with Thassa, even though Thassa's not on yet, to push that Tidebinder Mage, maybe even push that Mutavault through if he does have another land. So things are certainly changing here. Now, Kurth does still have plenty of things to do. He has a Hero's Downfall in his hand. I believe he has another Desecration Demon in his hand. So it's not over. It's definitely a back and forth affair.
Yeah, I think if you're Lloyd, you basically have to be a little aggressive here, and I think you might have to play the Desecration Demon. I think you have to play the Desecration Demon here. Obviously, holding the Hero's Downfall is nice if you think maybe you can get a Mutavault or the Mage down, but you keep him off the Devotion. But I don't know. I mean, it just seems like there's too many things that Ross can do to kind of make that difficult for you. Especially because he's scrying each turn. He's going to be able to find something to turn on Thassa.
And Merriam taking a look right now with Thassa. Again, we were wondering what the cards were in his hand last turn, but they were 2 spells. This looks to be another one. And Judge Familiar is going to come into play. That turns on Thassa, but the Devotion is kind of weak right now. All it takes is 1 removal spell to break it up, and we know Kurth does have 1 Hero's Downfall. So Ross says, I would like to attack. And it looks like the answer is resounding no. Hero's Downfall is going to target Tidebinder Mage. That'll take 2 Devotion off. So Thassa's further away. Now, do we fire up the old Mutavault, make it unblockable, get in? It looks like that's what he's going to do. So Mutavault's unblockable. Judge Familiar will come in. Kurth's going to go down to 2.
Yeah, I don't love that play by Lloyd because I think you want to make him attack first because there's a chance that he probably makes the Tidebinder Mage unblockable because he doesn't want to lose Devotion.
Sure.
So that you can kill it and then Mutavault can get blocked.
Sure.
But instead, Ross wins.
Ross does win. Mono blue on the draw against Lloyd. Kurth takes it down. He just played against a turn 2 Pack-Rat on the play and really did have a 3rd land on time, but Ross Merriam found a way. Mono blue Devotion up a game here over black-white mid-range. We're going to bring it back to the booth because it is trivia time, the first of 3. Of course, the rules are pretty simple. This guy's going to have the question. Make sure that you are following at SCG Live. Get your Twitters open. Use the hashtag SCG Premium. The first question will be for 3 months, and we will announce the winner at the conclusion of our quarterfinal round. And never forget that all contests and giveaways here on Star City Games are at sole discretion of SCG. No affiliation with Twitch so far as our giveaways are concerned, though we do thank Twitch for all their help with what we do here.
Okay, so the trivia question for 3 months of premium.
Okay.
Star City Games will be hosting Grand Prix Orlando at the beginning of October. Who are the 3 masculine, handsome commentators that will be doing coverage that weekend?
You know, that is a great question.
Great question.
That's a great
yes.
question. And I've been told that one of them looks better than the other 2. But if you
Definitely darker than the other 2.
But if you can name all 3, hashtag the answer, hashtag SCG Premium. Make sure you're following SCG Live, and we will announce the winner at the conclusion of our quarterfinal round. We are going to turn our attention back to the match right now on the sideboards here. We're going to look at Lloyd Kurth first. You're going to see 2 Blood Baron of a Scope, a 2 City Collector, an Underworld Connections, a Deicide, a Doomblade, 2 Freakus Cure, a Whip of Erebos, an Erebos God of the Dead, 2 Drown in Sorrow, and 2 copies of Duress. What do you like over there?
Okay, so definitely all the removal packages coming in. Deicide to take out Thassa, Doomblade, Freakus Cures in order to kill Master Waves and other creatures. Those 4 are definitely coming in. Drown in Sorrow, I think, can also be pretty backbreaking. You generally want that more. Actually, on the play, it's still fine, too. So the Drown in Sorrow is definitely coming in, too. So we have basically 6 removal spells that are coming in. He does have copies of Duress. Maybe you might want to bring those in just because you think Mono Blue is going to bring in more spells. But definitely the 6 removal spells, I think, are coming in for sure.
On the other side of things, we've got a Claustrophobia, 2 copies of Domestication, a Dispel, 2 Dissolve, 3 Gainsay, a Mizium Skin, 2 Negate, a Biden of Thassa, a Jace Memory Adept, and a Jace Architect of Thought. What do we like there?
I love the Biden of Thassa. That's one of those cards that black-white mid-range has a very difficult time dealing with. Obviously, Deicide helps now, but Biden's always a card that mono blue wants against black-white, or even any black deck for that matter. I actually kind of like Jace Architect of Thought as well in this matchup, just because it gets you a little more card advantage, and it's another card that Lloyd probably has to deal with eventually. I do like cards like Mizium Skin's an interesting card because it kind of can protect. Sometimes it can randomly save your creatures from a Drown in Sorrow, but really Mizium Skins, I think, is just an efficient way to stop some of the targeted removal that Lloyd has. And as we've seen, Lloyd's deck can't really cast multiple spells in one turn, so if you can top a Timely Hero's Downfall or a Doomblade from killing your Master of Ways, that can swing the game dramatically in your favor. So I kind of like the Mizium Skin as well. Beyond that, though, I don't really see the Claustrophobia coming in, although since Demon can be so problematic for this deck at times, I could see that coming in just as another way, because he does have multiple rapid hybridizations. Maybe that's just another way to stop Demon. Domestication is probably not good enough, because you're not really taking a Night Veil Spectre. You're just taking basically maybe a Pack Rat or maybe a Lightbane Zombie, but it's probably really not good enough for that. So I kind of like the Mizium Skin. Dispel for the same reason, because it can stop a counter removal spell, along with a Biden of Thassa and possibly a Jace Architect Thought.
Both players are shuffling up here and finishing up. We'll have game number 2 underway, as well as other results from matches when we do get them in. But we want to take a look at our Season 3 leaderboard right now. Again, Joe Lissette is the player that people are chasing. You see Ross Merriam, he's got 100 Open Series points. Of these players, he's the only one in the top 8. So he has a real opportunity here. If he wins this tournament, he's going to jump up to 120 points. You throw in 2 more for an IQ that he played in on Thursday. That puts him to 122. You look at the standings here, he catapults himself all the way up into 4th place. And then things get really interesting.
Yeah, I know Bertoncini might have gotten some points yesterday, too.
I believe a top 64. Let's slot Alex in 132 points, just for sake of example.
So then you have basically Lissette, Bertoncini, and Merriam all basically within, 15 or so points of each other. That's a really close race with only a few more events left to go before the Invitational.
Yeah, this is where kind of the race gets a little bit tight, and then it's time to decide, all right, Kansas City's next weekend, do I want to go there? The following weekend, do I want to go to Dallas? These players are racing, and even though Gerard didn't have a great weekend, I believe maybe he managed to edge out of top 64. He's still in this thing, too.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen Kent Ketter for a little while. He lives in the Ohio area. I thought he might come up with his buddy Eric Rill, but he's opted not to. But he has finished in 9th place in both Invitationals this year, so he is certainly capable of getting back in this race if he does choose to travel to some of the events in August as well. So don't want to count him out either. But for right now, the one player that matters the most, I think, in this top 8 is Ross Merriam, and his chance to actually make up a whole lot of ground here with a win.
Yeah, and let's not forget that there's still a Legacy event and a Modern event today as well for them to get some more points. And, Gerard is here, Bertoncini's here, and Merriam, if he wins here, he's definitely entering the event later on.
Absolutely.
So, there's a potential here to see some major shifts in this leaderboard.
We're going to be keeping track of that. We're also just going to keep track of our match here again. Ross Merriam did win game number 1 with Mono Blue Devotion over Lloyd Kurth. It was actually, to me, that game's pretty impressive that he's able to win that one. I know, talking with Ross, and he's been playing Mono Blue for a very long time, he's basically said Pack Rat is obviously quite good, but there are a lot of times where you can beat Pack Rat. Like if their plan is just play Pack Rat on turn 2, activate, there are draws that Mono Blue can put together where you can beat that. And he had a really good draw that game of 1-drop, 2-drop, Thassa, Master of Ways.
Yeah, he drew 2 of the most powerful spells in his deck.
Yeah.
Thassa, Master of Ways. Those are definitely the cards you need. And again, Pack Rat's powerful, but if you're a tempo deck, you can beat that draw.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Ross proved. He kind of just curved out, did exactly what Mono Blue does, drew his powerful spells, and even had a timely removal spell in rapid hybridization that really was the difference between the game, winning and losing there. So kind of perfect start there for Ross.
It was a good draw.
Good draw. But again, it just goes to show you if Lloyd leads with a Thoughtseize, he probably wins. Like Thoughtseize plus Pack Rat.
Yeah.
You could tempo all you want. Thoughtseize plus Pack Rat's going to be hard to beat no matter what.
Can't sell Thoughtseize short at all, that's for sure. Of course, when we do have updates of other matches, we will give them to you. Jeremy Bowman, Danny Jessup, that's a mono black mirror. That's the 4 versus 5. The winner of that match is going to play the winner of this match. And then on the other side of the bracket, Andrew, the Boz Boswell, playing green-white against Dylan Donegan, playing mono-blue. Boswell's worth matchup. We'll see if he can overcome that. Boswell is on the play there. And then Jonathan Morowski playing mono-black devotion against Stephen Reed, playing Naya Aggro, one of the more innovative decks in the top 8. And oddly enough, the Naya Aggro deck, no new cards, it looks like.
No.
Nothing too crazy. A deck that's existed before M15.
Yeah, basically, no M15 cards, even in the sideboard.
Yeah.
So I think, not even Battlefield Forge.
Straightforward as can be.
Yep.
Those beatdowns, that's the place to be, apparently.
So it goes to show you, you don't need M15 to be successful.
Not a lot of innovation in this top 8. Now I'm looking through deck list, Jeremy Bowman, who is our 5th seed, with mono black devotion. He has 2 copies of Urborg. There are some small innovations that take place, but typically in week 1 you don't see any giant innovations.
Yeah, I think you have some people who are willing to take a risk and really try to go for it, and a lot of times people just want to lean back on old favorites, and that's what you kind of have here. You have the pillars of the format: mono black, mono blue. No real control decks though, which is surprising. I mean, I guess that's not too surprising because week 1 of any new format, you generally don't see control shine that much just because you never know what you're going to have to play against. So it's hard to play a reactive kind of control deck when you don't really know for sure what the metagame's going to be like, So I think that's kind of why at Pro Tour Theros last year, you didn't really see Esper do that well at the Pro Tour, simply because there was just a wide variety of decks and no one really knew what I needed to prepare against. So if you don't know what you have to beat, it's hard to build your control deck to kind of react accordingly.
Yeah. No revelation decks here in the top 8, and as you mentioned at Pro Tour Theros, Guillaume Wafatapo did well with Esper. That's it. But he's one of the best control players, of all time.
Yeah.
Quick update for you guys: Andrew Boswell does win game number 1 over Dylan Donegan. The Boz.
The Boz.
Somehow beating mono blue in game 1. I don't know how he does it. Maybe being on the play certainly matters. We see a Thoughtseize here. You talked about this. Kurth had this last game. Maybe he's the winner of game number 1. He writes down all those islands along with a Dispel, a Tidebinder Mage, and actually make it 2 copies of Tidebinder Mage. And he will select one of them.
Yeah, so if he's got the pack rat, this is definitely a much better pack rat draw for him.
Kurth does draw. There's a Mutavault, and the fun is over.
So this is vastly superior to his draw last time. He doesn't have to contend with a 1-drop from Ross, plus he's got a Mutavault even.
Yeah, geez.
So really good start here for Lloyd. Turn 2, Mutavault, pack rat, go.
Yeah, Lloyd's draw last turn was a Drown in Sorrow, and oddly enough, he can work his way, as Tidebinder Mage is going to come into the red zone, he can work his way to making Drown in Sorrow very favorable for him. Now, Thassa is a really timely top deck there from Ross. That'll help him get him back into the game, as Kurth is going to discard a card here. You see his hand. It's actually just Lance and Drown in Sorrow, so we're all in.
Yeah.
We're going to play one way, but as we have seen over the past 6 months, that one way is pretty good.
And he's going to discard Swamp here, so he's got a Temple. Oh, wow, he discards Temple. So that's a little surprising, because if he doesn't draw anything really useful, he could have just played the Temple and scryed and then pitched the card. He's likely just going to pitch, but now he can activate his Mutavault and get a little more damage in.
Yeah, this gets really ugly for us now, because now he just attacks with both creatures. He discards a card. It looks like it's going to be Basic Swamp. Maybe it's Goblet Shrine. Who knows? He's going to go with Basic Swamp. Goblet Shrine provides his white source of mana. Activate Mutavault. Deal ya 8. The race is on. It doesn't seem to be in Merriam's favor right now.
Yeah, Merriam is basically dead to the creatures on board unless he, so he's going to have to be in chump block duty pretty soon. Master of Waves would be a reasonable top that gives him some chump blockers, but again, he's not really putting that much pressure on Lloyd's life total. So
yeah, he's playing defensively at that point, and then he's hoping that Lloyd just doesn't have a removal spell. I mean, that's really all that he can do, and we know that Kurth doesn't have one, but it's not a great situation here for Merriam, and this is the difference between, just playing a pack rat or Thoughtseize pack rat. You've got the information, you got to move accordingly, and Kurth is pretty far ahead this game.
Yeah, and Lloyd now has 2 Mutavaults in play, so he can actually activate both and attack with his entire army. All his rats would be 5/5s, basically.
Not a bad turn.
So, yeah, it's going to be, Ross would basically need to block 2 of the rats in order to survive.
Well, there's a domestication. He's going to take one of those rats, and he's going to come into the red zone here, not slowing down at all. He says, I need to get moving, as Thassa has been turned on via domestication. Kurth's going to go down to 9. He has taken some damage this game from that Thoughtseize, so the race is certainly on at this point. You do see Kurth's hand. It's just another land. Again, a Drown in Sorrow, a Quetzalcoatlus, and a Godless Shrine.
Yeah, so still pretty good shape here for Lloyd. he's at 9, and he can still make his rats pretty huge. So I think he's still feeling pretty confident right here.
He's got to be careful. It's very possible, since he doesn't have any removal, that he could just simply lose to Ross just with a Thassa active, making creatures unblockable and killing him.
Yeah, he's got to be a little wary of that, but I believe, so the rats currently are 3/3s. Oh yeah, so he might not even have to block. No, if he activates the second Mutavault, they become 4/4s.
4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
If he attacks with both Mutavaults.
Yeah, if he fires up both Mutavaults and then attacks with everything, we're looking at an attack for exactly 12. I don't know if that's the play he's going to... I guess, he'd have to fire both Mutavaults to make it a lethal attack this turn.
Or he can, if he has a land in his hand, he can activate Pack Rat, attack with the Mutavault, and then activate the other Mutavault, so he can get a blocker if he wants.
There's an activation, maybe. Lloyd second-guessing himself a little bit right now.
Yeah, because I think the land in his hand is Godless Shrine.
It is.
So that's a little risky, because that'll drop you down to 7, and Ross has potentially 7 power.
And here comes everybody. Is this an attack here for 3, 6, 7, 8 as it stands? And Lloyd's actually already played his land for the turn. He's already played his land for the turn since he's on the play.
Oh, yes.
So he played Akiva the Koleos for the turn.
Yeah, so this is basically... So this is going to be interesting. Ross technically doesn't have to block, does he? 3, 8, 9, 10 if he activates the rat?
Doesn't have to block. But he may be interested in doing so.
If he blocks, then he loses Thassa.
Thassa gets turned off,
devotion.
yeah. Looks like he does have some interest in blocking. Kurth's going to discard. Going to make everybody a little bit bigger. So this will be an attack here for 4, 5, 6 points of damage is going to come through. Merriam's going to go down to 6. It's time for him to untap and see if Thassa can help him find something. Take a look at that top card.
Yeah, Master Way's probably not good enough right here. Another domestication would be great.
Yeah, Master puts you on chump blocking. I mean, it does give you plenty of time to chump block. That's not so bad.
Yeah, the problem is, though, he wouldn't be able to attack with the Tidebinder Mage, and he's not turning on Thassa. So a Master's basically just a chump blocker. You're not even able to attack, really.
I like this attack.
Yeah. I don't think Lloyd wants to block here.
I can't imagine he does.
There could be Cyclonic Rift, hybridization, another domestication.
The big thing here is like that attack from Ross is like basically a free roll. That's why I love that attack, because I don't think there's a world in which Lloyd blocks. Like, you got to sniff him out in a big way. You have to be very confident that you're right about that, because if there's a rapid on a rat, or if there's a Cyclonic Rift on another rat, that's horrible for you.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening is Ross just plays 2 creatures post-combat, Frostburn Weird and a Judge's Familiar. That turns on Thassa, and his last card is just a Dispel.
Yep.
So Lloyd knows all the contents. He knows that Ross got him for 2.
Yep. He knows that, but he does have that Drown in Sorrow still, so he can actually deal with a lot of the creatures he can deal with the Judge's Familiar and the Tidebinder Mage, and that'll turn off Thassa's Devotion, and leaving Ross with just an 0-2 Weird.
And it looks like Lloyd may be casting that Drown Sorrow, and he is. Now, he's not going to lose any of his rats. They're 3/3, so they're going to become 1/1s. Merriam's going to lose quite a few things on his board. Yes, Judge's Familiar can make it cost 1 more, and we may see Merriam do that. But Drown in Sorrow is going to kill Tidebinder Mage. It's going to kill Judge's Familiar. It's going to turn off Thassa, and the Frostburn, as you mentioned, is going to be an 0-2. So Merriam will target that. He will make Kurth pay the 1 more mana. There goes the Tidebinder Mage. It's time for Kurth to scry. That Swamp is going to go to the bottom of the deck very quickly. But that Drown in Sorrow, we were wondering if that was going to play a role, and it certainly did.
Yeah, and now Lloyd can play a land. He could activate both his Mutavaults and make the rats even bigger. Yep. So let's see here. The rats could potentially be 5 or 8. Yeah, so that's enough. Even with the -2, yeah, so.
So he comes through, and it looks like it is for enough damage. Maybe Merriam just announced no blocks at that point. But either way, Lloyd Kurth is going to win game number 2 here against Ross Merriam. Black-white mid-range with a helpful Drown in Sorrow will defeat Ross Merriam playing mono-blue Devotion. So we're even up here as we head to game number 3.
So that was a much better Pack Rat draw for Lloyd. He was able to go turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 Pack Rat, and a Mutavault. But Ross was still almost able to kind of pull that one out. It was more closer than I think we thought. Mostly because of Thassa. Thassa certainly is always going to help you kind of get back into games.
Thassa on one side, 2, Kurth not really drawing anything of consequence on the other. He drew all lands on Drown in Sorrow that game.
Yeah, he didn't really get the removal spells. Like we said in the first game, Pack Rat plus a timely removal spell. Like if he draws like a Bile Blight or something there, suddenly the game's a lot easier for him.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to worry nearly as much.
Yeah, I think that game's a laugher then.
Yeah, when you go, turn 2 pack rat, turn 3 land, turn 4 land, turn 5, activate, removal spell. That's when it's really almost impossible for you to win, or lose rather. But Lloyd was able to pull that one out, and now we're in game 3. Ross has to be feeling okay, though, because it's not like he got blowed out in game 2, despite having to face turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 pack rat. And now he's going to be on the play, which is, if he can get that curve, if he can get that tempo curve draw that he got in game 1, he's going to be in pretty good shape to kind of close out this match. 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop. Lloyd is going to be on the back foot pretty much from the beginning of the match. So, beginning of the game rather. So Ross can definitely win this one. He's got to be feeling. I think he's got to be feeling okay about his chances now.
I would say splitting games where your opponent starts with a pack rat and on the play. You split the games where Lloyd has just gone turn 2 pack rat, puts you to the test right away. Now you're on the play. You're able to beat a pack rat on the draw. I wouldn't say pretty easily, but I feel like given the appropriate draw, you don't really care too much about pack rat on the draw. And there's no guarantee that Lloyd will even have pack rat on the draw. So I think if you're Ross and you were able to break serve and you're on the play game 3 in this matchup, you got to be happy.
Yeah, especially if you can curve.
Yeah.
Like if you can go 1 drop, 2 drop, that's a real 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop. It's really, really good for you. So I think that Ross is feeling pretty good. Plus, he got to see a little bit of what Lloyd was sideboarding. He obviously saw the Drown in Sorrows, so gets a little more information. I'm a little surprised at the domestications, mostly just because I didn't think they'd be that good in this matchup. They turned out to be okay.
Ross is a big domestication fan against this deck. I have seen him play mono blue against mono black a lot, boarding and domestication basically every single time. The times where you can take a desecration demon just briefly, be able to continue to push through damage, or take a desecration demon and sacrifice it to another desecration demon. Taking a pack rat, he knows his opponent has Lifebane Zombie, so you can take that from them. A lot of targets, able to turn on Devotion as well. I know that he's a big fan of that card in this matchup.
Yeah, and it certainly almost helped him win the game there. Unfortunately, there was just too many pack rats to contend with. But it also helping your devotion count kind of helps. It's kind of a non-creature permanent, so kind of if they do kill it, they're killing one of their own creatures anyway. So I think you're probably okay with that. You're basically 2 for 1-ing them. So yeah, really interesting to see whether or not that kind of plays a role in game 3 here.
Again, winner of this match is going to play the winner of Jeremy Bowman versus Danny Jessup. No result there yet in the Mono Black Devotion mirror. We've got Andrew Boswell up a game against Dylan Donegan. That's our backup match. Hopefully we'll have the opportunity to jump over to Green-White versus Mono Blue. And then Jonathan Morowski playing Mono Black Devotion against Stephen Reed playing Naya Aggro. That is 4 Black Devotion decks. No Revelation decks. You could say 1 red deck if you want to classify Naya Aggro as that. And then some Mono Blue, which seems to be the case every time we come around these parts. One thing also to note, no, monsters decks, no Jund monsters floating around. So
we did see some on camera yesterday.
Yeah,
but yeah,
we
didn't seem like anyone was able to break through top 8.
They all got off to really nice starts too. 5-0, 6-0, but not able to ever crack through. Eric Smith seems like he may have been the closest one to having a really, really good finish with Jund monsters.
We didn't get to see Todd Anderson's mono green devotion deck.
Yeah, Todd had a pretty good run. Ended up 7-3 yesterday. Said he really liked his deck. Said he needs to change some slots around. Chad Castell said the same thing as well. They said they felt like it was about 4 or 5 cards off, but they think that the deck definitely has some legs.
Yeah, definitely. I think it definitely has potential. It's just, obviously you're not going to find the right build week 1.
Yeah, that's very tough to do.
But it definitely looked like it had. I was really impressed by Hornet Queen, so definitely interesting.
Quick update for you guys here as Merriam does start off with the Cloudfin Raptor. Both players going to keep their opening hands. Jonathan Morowski and Stephen Reed, Mono Black Devotion versus Naya Aggro, are headed into game number 3. Kurth going to play a Temple of Silence before kicking it back over to Merriam. Merriam has a Mutavault as his second land. There's a second Cloudfin Raptor. Pass the turn back. Now he's playing the old I Hope You Don't Have Vile Blight, which is exactly what Lloyd drew. Must be nice.
Must be nice. And if you're Lloyd, I think you just pull the trigger now.
Kill it now.
You know he has the spell because you saw it last game. Just get rid of those 2 flyers. You don't want to have to worry about it.
Between Dispel and Rapid Hybridization, kill them now.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he's going to do.
It's a perfect scenario, too, because he's only got 1 Mutavault up, so you don't have to worry about either of the cards you mentioned. So.
Oh, no.
Uh-oh.
It's bad news bears. It's an attack with Mutavault on turn 3 from Merriam. Not adding to his board at all. Kurth is going to play a Godless Shrine tap, pass the turn back. Doesn't have a pack rat this game, but Merriam doesn't have a 3rd land. Looks like he has multiple copies of Thassa. He's not going to attack in that tap into that open mana, and now here's a Desecration Demon.
Yeah, and I actually would have preferred Lloyd lead with the Thoughtseize that he just drew, because if you can just keep that demon in play, you're probably winning for sure.
I mean, you're going to win quick.
Now, it doesn't matter. He can still get a pretty good curve here. He's going to lead with Thoughtseize now, and he drew a Lifebane Zombie, so.
Yeah, you can see Merriam's hand here. 2 copies of Thassa, Tidebinder Mage, 2 Night Veil Specters, and Rapid Hybridization. He kept a hand that said, I need to draw a 3rd land on time. And if I do, Thassa will likely take care of the rest.
I think I take that hybridization. Given that he's got only 1 blue source in play, you don't have to worry about the Night Veil Specters right away. Thassa, I don't think is that, you don't have to worry about Thassa as much, but it looks like he's going to take the time.
I can see a reason to take Tidebinder because it's going to lock down the Frog Lizard. But I mean, he does have a removal spell.
He has a removal spell, yeah, that was my thing. But either way, Ross really doesn't have that much to work with. Even if he does top deck an island, still not in the best shape.
And there is the land. You can see a little bit of frustration here, too. He knows he's in some trouble. He's underneath the gun, and he found the 3rd land on time. I think he's probably a favorite to win the game.
Oh, yeah, that hand is fine. I mean, if he draws an island, he's able to go Cloudfin Raptor, Tidebinder Mage.
Yeah.
Instead, he was forced to commit 2 Cloudfin Raptors, which got Bile-Blighted. So pretty unfortunate draws there for Ross.
And there's a Banishing Light to take care of the first Thassa. Here's a backup Thassa burst. Kurth gets to keep attacking, picks up a Doomblade. You have to imagine he's got a bunch of removal in his hand. Here's an attack for 6. Merriam's going to go down to 5. And now a Desecration Demon. And yeah, now he's just too far behind. Merriam's going to scry. He'll take a look at the top card, but...
Yeah, Lloyd has 3 creatures in play, along with the Mutavault and a handful of removal spells.
Yes. He's going to play it on, and he's going to concede the game. Lloyd Kurth is going to win this match over Ross Merriam. 2-1. Black-White mid-range does down Mono Blue Devotion. For Merriam, it's a disappointing way to go, obviously. Number 8 on our Season 3 leaderboard. You have to imagine when he keeps that hand, he's got to be thrilled about his positioning.
I mean, you have so many cards that are good in this matchup. Night Veil Spectre, Thassa, both 2 copies of each, so you have protection against Thoughtseize. I mean, you have the 1-drops, you have the 2-drop. You got to feel good. Unfortunately, that Mutavault. You know?
I mean, that Mutavault and not having that 3rd land.
Not having, yeah, I think it's definitely a reasonable keep. You got to like your chances, particularly because you have 2 copies of Thassa.